Greetings, Spartans. Welcome back to another tutorial on the Pixlr program. So this should look familiar because this is what we did today. This was our practice. Our practice was about how to navigate around the layers palette. You can see as I click through some of these objects that only one object at a time becomes affected, and that's because I went ahead and added a new layer for each new element. In this case, those elements are shapes. And I colored each shape differently, and each shape in themselves are different. So how did we make those shapes? As you recall, we used the lasso select tool, and in that tool itself, you have options. The first one is the free form that created this orange and yellow shape. We also have the polygon tool. That's what helped me create this triangle. These other two options are for something else. You won't need those today. We also created a square. The square is going to be created with the marquee select. And in that tool, you have options either with the rectangle or the ellipse. And of course, for the rectangle, we use the rectangle option. This actually was a perfect square. So how do you make a perfect square? As you recall, hopefully, you would then hold down the Shift key. Shift will allow you to make that perfect square. If I let go of Shift, you will then just have your ordinary rectangle. Okay? How do you get rid of the ants? Getting rid of the ants is done by doing Control D on the keyboard. Okay? So that was our practice. And I'm going to go ahead and walk us through our project. This is related to our project. You can see what I started to make. But I'm going to go ahead and close that one and restart. So I'll go ahead and open image. Or sorry, I'm going to go to create new. I'm going to use our square, the same one we used in practice. I'm going to call this name layers. Let me spell that correctly. Name layers. Again, it's 1080 by 1080. I'm going to utilize a background, make it white, and create. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add a layer above that background. And we're going to choose empty. So the background is layer 1. The current layer that I just made is layer 2. I'm going to use those same tools that we used during class today, but those tools are going to make letters instead of basic shapes. Okay? Each letter is going to be unique. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the letter D. I'm going to start with a rectangle, and I'm going to subtract to make that opening for that letter D. How do I do that? Well, I'm going to come up here, and it says right here in this option, remove from selection. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to remove that section. Now, maybe it looks like the letter O right now, but I'm not done with my design. So now I'm going to take my lasso tool, and it's already in the subtraction mode. I call it subtraction, but it says remove, but it's the same thing. I'm used to what they call it in Photoshop. So again, this is a program that resembles Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my polygon lasso, and I'm going to remove, and I'm going to just draw a straight line down, come up, and double click. You see how I subtracted that to give that little angle there? I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to click here, here, I'm going to come around and double click, and that subtracted it. Now, if I want sort of that same feature, I would have to add onto that. So I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to come here, here, and double click. Here, here, and double click. Now you don't have to do the same thing. You can come up with your own design because that's really what I want you to do. Okay, because I want all of these things to look different. I don't want yours to look like your friends. You want to try to create a work of art showing these fun little shapes that spell out your name. No, you cannot use the type tool or the text tool because that would defeat the whole purpose of using our shapes. Okay, so we're making shapes look like letters. We're not using type to make letters. We're using shapes to make letters, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill that with this color by using the paint bucket. And now I'm going to deselect by doing Control D, and there you go. Now I can take my Arrange tool and resize it. I can also rotate it and arrange it. That letter is finished. Of course, I could put, under Filter, I could put a drop shadow. I think I'll do that. And I'll click Offset X, and then I'll click Apply. Okay, now I'm going to add a new layer, and it's got to be an empty layer. And remember, I named the layers before in our practice, so I'll call this letter U. And then I'll hit Enter. I'll do the same thing for letter D, since I forgot earlier. Letter D. Hit Enter and close that dialog box. So there, I got letter B and letter U. Now, you notice this layer is green. That means it's active, but I don't want this to be active, so I'm going to go up to letter U because that's where I'm going to make my new letter. Now, that next letter I make, I want it to look different than that letter D. So I'm going to take my lasso tool and freeform, and then I'm going to use New Selection. And then I'm going to draw it out. Okay, kind of a cursive-y shape here. And then come down. Now I've had practice with this, so this may take you a couple times. If you don't like it, you just click again, and those letters or those marching ants will disappear. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose another color, and I'll make it greenish, and then I'll bucket that letter and do Control D to deselect those ants. And then, of course, I'm going to take my Arrange tool, and I'm going to resize it. What I want are different colors, different sizes, different designs. If you can remember those three things, then you're in good shape. Good shape. Get it? No pun intended. I'm going to add one more layer and do one more letter as an example. So I'm going to go back to my lasso. I'm going to use the polygon lasso this time. And I'm going to go ahead and make sort of an angular kind of lowercase d. Have fun with this. I want you to really go for something unique. Challenge yourself. Make these fun. I want to share these unique ones with your classmates. So I'm going to remove a little area because we know what D's look like. Now that may not look like a D to you, so I agree with that. So I'm going to add and maybe kind of fine tune this, maybe fix this a little bit. Let's see, does that help? A little bit, I guess. I'll just stay with that because I don't have a lot of time with my recording. Okay, now I'm going to change the color, dump some color in there, and deselect. Okay, I'd probably add another, let's see, let me try something new. How about beveled? Beveled. Beveled's kind of cool. Okay. Let's see, size, depth. Oh yeah, this is really neat. Shadow, opacity, and then I'll apply it. Okay, then I'm going to take my Move tool or Arrange tool, maybe resize it a little bit. And I want you to arrange it in a special way to make this look like a work of art. But I also want to read it at the same time. So you got to sort of arrange it properly so we can still read your name. Now I'm going to stop there, but I want your first name. Now, if you have a short first name, then go ahead and add your last name also. You know, if you can get 6 shapes, 6 letters in here, that would be great. Okay. I might maybe add a background color and fill that with the paint bucket. And that helps that image pop out a little bit better. Okay, so that's it. I hope you learned something. I hope it helps, and have fun. And we'll see you tomorrow.